Why was her beacon transmitting 3 weeks after her funeral? The sound was faint at first, a rhythmic chirp buried in static. At 02:07 hours inside the Tactical Operations Center at Coronado, California, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Hammer Rodriguez stared at the screen as if it had just conjured a ghost. The signal tech looked over his shoulder, voice trembling. "Sir, authentication code matches." Rodriguez frowned. "Matches what?" "Lieutenant Layla Allen's emergency beacon." For a moment, no one breathed. The room filled with the hum of computers, the click of a distant keyboard, and the low buzz of disbelief. Rodriguez's hand tightened around his coffee mug until the heat bit through his fingers. "That's impossible," he whispered. "Layla Allen was killed in action 3 weeks ago." "I know, sir," the tech said quietly. "I was at her memorial." But the screen didn't lie. The signal blinked steadily, alive, insistent, and coded with her personal authentication sequence, the same one they deactivated after her supposed death. Rodriguez leaned closer. "Where it coming from?" The tech hesitated before answering. "Coordinates place it 40 miles southeast of Tehran, inside an IRGC black site." Silence thick and heavy. 3 weeks ago, Rodriguez had folded the American flag that draped Layla Allen's empty casket. He'd handed it to her younger sister, a girl who'd looked up at him with eyes hollowed by grief and said she didn't deserve to die like that. Now that same girl's sister, the first woman ever to serve in a Navy SEAL combat team, was calling from the dead. He straightened, jaw set. "Get me JSOC on encrypted comms," he ordered, "and wake the team. If Layla's alive, we're bringing her home." 8,000 feet above the Iranian desert, Master Chief Jake Phoenix Sullivan checked his altimeter. Wind tore past him, tugging at the edges of his mask, the vast night swallowing everything below. Beside him, 5 other members of SEAL Team 3 fell silently through the darkness, their halo formation perfect, black shapes cutting through the starlit void. Phoenix's heartbeat steadied. He'd done this hundreds of times, but tonight was different. Tonight wasn't a mission. It was a resurrection. Layla Allen. They had buried her. They had cried for her. And yet the mission briefing that night had been simple, insane, but simple. A beacon belonging to their fallen teammate had been detected, confirmed. And if that signal was real, she was alive, imprisoned inside a facility that officially didn't exist. Phoenix could still hear Rodriguez's voice during the briefing, aboard the USS Baton. "She's transmitting from deep within Iranian territory, 40 miles southeast of Tehran. A Revolutionary Guard black site intelligence extraction unit. Torture, interrogation, deniable detention. We have a 40-minute radar gap. That's your window. Get in, confirm, extract, and exfiltrate." It had felt surreal. They'd spent nights staring at her picture in the ready room, the framed memorial under the SEAL trident. Now that same face was their objective. 2 minutes to target. "Team, check gear," Phoenix said over the bone conduction mic. His voice was calm, clipped, unshakable. He served beside Layla for 3 years, long enough to know she wasn't the type to go down quietly. Phoenix remembered the first time he'd met her, Bud-esque graduation, her uniform soaked, ribs taped from injuries she'd never reported. She had walked with quiet defiance, unflinching, like someone who carried storms behind her eyes. When the Navy called her the first woman to earn a SEAL trident, she had simply said, "Then I guess I'd better earn it twice." Below them, the Iranian desert stretched out like a graveyard of forgotten wars, a smear of dust, stone, and silence. 2 minutes, Rodriguez's voice came through the headset from the command center aboard the Baton. "Drone confirms minimal activity. Guards in standard rotation. Your window starts now." "Copy that," Phoenix answered. "Team's green." He exhaled and opened his chute. The canopy bloomed above him with barely a whisper. He guided himself down toward the designated landing zone, a dried riverbed 2 kilometers from the compound. One by one, his teammates touched down, their boots sinking softly into cold sand. Within seconds, they buried their chutes, checked weapons, and moved. No light, no noise. Just 6 ghosts sliding through the desert. "Joker on point," Phoenix whispered. "Reaper overwatch, Titan Spectre with me." They advanced, the distant hum of generators their only guide. Through night vision, the facility appeared squat concrete buildings surrounded by twin fences topped with razor wire, 3 guard towers casting narrow cones of yellow light. Reaper's voice came over the radio, calm and surgical. 6 guards visible, standard patrol, no signs of alert. Phoenix raised his scope. The target building loomed at the center, the one that led underground. Intelligence suggested Layla was being held below ground level, roughly 30 meters down. The beacon data matched. "Remember," Doc murmured, the team medic. "We don't know what condition she's in. 3 weeks, she might not be mobile." Phoenix's throat tightened. "She activated that beacon. That takes clarity. She's still fighting." They reached the outer fence at 02:48 hours. Spectre knelt, unpacking a compact cutting charge. The wire hissed briefly, melting apart in silence. One by one, they slipped through, crossing the narrow kill zone between fences. And then a human error. A guard, half hidden by a storage shed, cigarette glowing between his fingers. He turned, froze, eyes widening as he saw them. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then his hand went for the radio. "Contact." Joker's MP7 coughed once, suppressed round finding its mark. The guard collapsed, but not before his finger pressed the transmit button. Static crackled, then a shout over the compound's comms, "Tassadov, compromise." Phoenix cursed under his breath. "We're blown, go loud." The quiet night shattered. Alarms wailed, floodlights ignited, turning darkness into searing daylight. Gunfire erupted from the towers as Iranian guards scrambled to respond. "Reaper, clear those towers," Phoenix barked. From the ridge, Reaper's suppressed rifle answered, single, precise cracks that silenced the first tower, then the next. Still, more figures poured from the barracks. "Move main building." They sprinted through the chaos, bullets snapping past, tracer rounds slicing the air. Phoenix felt the old rhythm kick in, seconds stretching, senses sharpening. Everything became instinct. The main doorway appeared ahead, narrow and deadly, a perfect kill funnel. "Titan, breach left, Spectre, cover right," Phoenix shouted, diving for cover as Titan's LMG roared. The entrance exploded into splinters. Inside, chaos, hallways lit by flickering fluorescents, echoing with shouts in Farsi. Phoenix led the way down the main corridor, rifle up, boots pounding the floor. "Beacons 30 meters below," Rodriguez relayed in his ear. "You're close." They moved fast, too fast for the enemy to organize. Each room they passed was a nightmare. Interrogation chairs, restraints, bloodstains, evidence of what she'd endured. "Doc, signal strength," Phoenix asked. "Getting stronger, she's here." Then faintly through the gunfire a voice, "Weak, American." "I don't know anything else." Then louder, defiant, "But I know my brothers are coming for me." Phoenix froze, that voice, hoarse but unbroken. "Layla," he whispered. He charged toward the sound, following the beacon pulsing on his wrist display. The signal led him to a reinforced door at the corridor's end, locked with an electronic seal. "Spectre, get up here." The demolitions expert sprinted over, slapping a small data detonator onto the lock. 10 seconds. Those 10 seconds felt like 10 years. Inside the room, he heard shouting, furniture toppling, a pistol cocking. He imagined her tied, broken, yet somehow still fighting. The charge blew. Smoke filled the hall. Phoenix stormed through. Inside, 2 Iranian officers spun toward him, one raising a pistol, the other a radio. Phoenix fired twice. Both dropped. And then he saw her. Layla Allen sat bound to a steel chair, wrists bruised raw, blood dried at the corners of her mouth. Her uniform was gone, replaced with rags. Her hair hung in tangled streaks, but her eyes, even swollen, one nearly shut, were still hers. Sharp. Alive. Phoenix crossed the room, cutting her restraints. "Layla, it's Phoenix. We're getting you out." Her cracked lips curved faintly. "Knew you'd come," she whispered. "Told them. SEALs don't leave anyone behind." Doc was at her side in seconds, checking vitals. Multiple contusions, dehydration, but stable. She can move with support. Phoenix helped her stand. Her legs buckled, he caught her easily. She weighed almost nothing. "I can walk," she insisted. "Not today," he said gently. "Doc, stim shot." The medic injected a combat stimulant and color began to return to her face. She gripped Phoenix's arm, voice urgent. "There are others. 2 CIA operatives. East Wing, 3rd Block." Phoenix turned to his comms. "Joker, Spectre, possible friendlies, East Wing, 3rd Block." "Already there," Joker replied. "Found them, 1 ambulatory, 1 critical. We're bringing them." Above them, gunfire intensified. Titan's weapon thundered. Reaper's voice came through, tense. 40 hostiles closing, vehicles inbound from the north. "Rodriguez, we need immediate exfil," Phoenix shouted. "Negative on primary LZ," came the reply. 2 platoons converging. Secondary route in 7 minutes. 7 minutes? In hell, that might as well be forever. Phoenix looked at Layla, pale, trembling but gripping a pistol now. The faintest flicker of the woman she'd been. They'd come for her, now they had to get her home. And as the echo of approaching boots filled the hallways, Phoenix realized something with quiet, devastating certainty. She hadn't just survived. She had waited for them. Because deep down she'd known the truth, the kind of truth only a SEAL understood. Dead or alive, no one gets left behind. Smoke thickened in the corridor, curling like ghosts through the flickering light. Every sound was amplified, boots slamming concrete, bullets snapping air, radios hissing foreign shouts. Phoenix adjusted his grip around Layla, keeping her upright as Doc reloaded with trembling hands. "Movement behind us," Titan warned, his voice tight. "We've got company." Phoenix turned. A line of shadows appeared at the far end of the corridor, rifles raised, moving fast. "Hold this hall," he barked. "We move after Titan's burst." Titan braced his machine gun against a door frame, finger tightening on the trigger. The weapon roared. The confined space became thunder. Plaster rained from the ceiling. The first wave of Iranian soldiers fell before they ever had a chance to aim. "Go, go, go." They sprinted through the haze. Layla's feet barely touched the ground. Phoenix half carried her, feeling her pulse hammer against his arm. She was burning hot with fever, but her eyes were alive, locked forward. Every few steps she glanced back, jaw clenched, as if refusing to let the sight of her prison fade from memory. They reached a junction where the corridor split. Phoenix hesitated, scanning. Beacon's signal still pinging. "Negative," Doc said. "You fried it when you cut her out." "Good, we don't need them tracking it." "Contact east," Reaper's voice crackled through comms. "Visual on multiple tangos, 6, maybe 8, moving toward you from the mess hall side." Phoenix gritted his teeth. "Copy. Spectre, Joker, you have the friendlies." "Affirm," Joker answered. "One's shot in the leg, the other's barely conscious. We're heading for the stairwell." "Rally at lower exit Bravo," Phoenix ordered. "Inspector." "Yeah." "Make it loud." They pushed toward the rendezvous. Each corner, each door was a gamble. Phoenix's training had long since stripped away fear, but what he felt now wasn't fear. It was anger. Controlled, cold anger. The kind that burned without showing. Layla stumbled once, catching herself on the wall. "Leave me," she rasped. "You can't fight dragging me." He shot her a look that silenced her instantly. "Don't ever say that again." Her mouth twitched, still bossy. "Still breathing," he replied and kept moving. Behind them, explosions rocked the corridor, Spectre doing his work. collapsing secondary hallways to slow pursuit. The blast light rolled through the smoke, painting the walls red. When they reached the stairwell, Joker was already there, hauling one of the CIA operators over his shoulder, blood trailing down his sleeve. "Package 2's hit bad," he grunted. "Doc, you got a miracle in that bag of yours." "Always," Doc said, setting down his kit beside the wounded man. "But we need air, not concrete." Phoenix glanced upward, flashes of gunfire silhouetted in the stairwell above. They were being boxed in. "Spectre," Phoenix called, "we need a hole now." Spectre knelt by the lower door, heavy steel, marked with warnings in Farsi. 5 seconds. They pressed back against the walls. Layla raised her pistol, a weapon far too heavy for her shaking hand, but she aimed steady. She wasn't a victim here. She refused to be. The charge detonated. The door blew inward, smoke spilling into the sub-basement tunnel beyond. Cold air rushed over them, the kind that smelled of sand and iron. "Go," Phoenix yelled. They plunged into the tunnel, flashlights slicing through the darkness. It was narrow, low ceiling, the air thick with dust. Somewhere behind them, voices shouted, boots pounding in pursuit. "This way," Phoenix said, checking the map overlay on his wrist display. "Secondary maintenance route runs straight to the outer wall." Layla stumbled again. Doc caught her arm this time. "You're doing fine," he murmured. "Almost there." She didn't answer, just kept walking, one foot after the other. Every breath was a war. They reached the end of the tunnel. A locked hatch barred the way, bolted shut with rusted clamps. Titan stepped forward, planted his boot, and ripped it open with brute strength. Night air flooded in, cool, dry, endless. For the first time, Layla saw the stars. She froze, staring upward through the opening. For 3 weeks her world had been concrete and screams. Now there was silence and a sky full of freedom. Her voice cracked. "I thought I'd never see that again." Phoenix climbed out first, offering his hand. "You will, just keep moving." They emerged behind the facility's perimeter, crouched in the shadow of a low wall. Alarms still wailed. Searchlights sliced across the compound. Gunfire erupted near the main building, Spectre's diversion still working. "Reaper, what do you see?" Phoenix whispered. "Convoy inbound from the north. 2 trucks, technicals with mounted guns. You've got maybe 4 minutes before they're on top of you." "Copy, we're pushing west to extraction." The desert stretched before them, open, flat, merciless. 300 meters of nothing between them and the LZ. "Smoke," Phoenix ordered, "all of it." Spectre nodded, launching grenades in a wide arc. The desert erupted in thick plumes of white smoke. "That's all I've got," he said, coughing. "It'll do." They ran, or tried to. The CIA operative slumped between Joker and Doc. Titan fired short, controlled bursts behind them, keeping the pursuing guards pinned. Phoenix half-carried Layla, her legs trembling but still moving. Every second felt stretched, elastic, unreal. Tracer fire cut through the haze, slicing overhead. Bullets hissed past. Sand erupted around their feet. "Keep moving," Phoenix shouted. Layla's breath came ragged. "You should have left me." He almost smiled. "Not an option." Then the RPG screamed through the smoke. A heartbeat later, impact. The blast threw them forward, sand and shrapnel tearing the air. Phoenix hit the ground hard, vision spinning. He rolled, coughing, searching for Layla. She was beside him, dazed but alive. Her ears bled faintly. She blinked, disoriented. He pulled her up again, ignoring the pain in his own shoulder. "Doc." "I'm good," the medic called, limping heavily. "Legs hit, but I can still run." They stumbled into the extraction zone, a flat stretch of ground marked by an infrared strobe. Then came the sound they'd been praying for, the deep thrum of rotor blades. 2 MH-60 Blackhawks swept over the horizon, low and fast. The desert wind whipped into a frenzy as they descended. door gunners already unleashing hell on the pursuing forces. "Move, move," Phoenix yelled, waving smoke toward the lead chopper. The first helicopter flared and touched down. The crew chief leaned out, shouting through the roar, "Let's go, 30 seconds." Phoenix shoved Layla toward the ramp. Doc helped the wounded CIA officer aboard. Joker and Spectre followed, firing short bursts to cover Titan, the last man holding the line. "Titan, fall back," Phoenix called. The big man sprinted through the dust, bullets chasing him. He dove onto the ramp as Phoenix hit the button to seal the hatch. All aboard. The Blackhawk lifted, engines screaming. Gunfire peppered the armor plating as they clawed skyward. Reaper's voice came over the radio from his overwatch position. "Engaging targets, clear skis ahead. You're good, Phoenix." The helicopter banked west, rising higher, faster. The compound shrank below, a burning scar in the desert. Inside the bird, the noise faded to a steady mechanical heartbeat. Doc knelt over Layla, his hands working automatically, IV line, saline, compression. Her pulse fluttered weakly under his touch. Phoenix sat beside her, helmet off, face streaked with sweat and dust. She turned her head slowly, eyes half open. "Took you long enough," she whispered. Joker chuckled weakly from across the cabin. "Yeah, we had to finish your memorial first." Layla smiled, cracked lips, swollen face, but still a smile. "Beautiful ceremony." "You'd have loved it," Joker said. She laughed, a broken, trembling sound that somehow filled the entire cabin. Then she coughed, chest shuddering. Doc steadied her. Phoenix looked out the window. The horizon burned gold with the first hint of dawn. He thought of the empty casket, the folded flag, the hollow words of closure. None of it had been real. This was real. Her voice broke the silence again, quieter now. "My sister, does she know?" "She never stopped believing," Phoenix said. "She said she could feel it, that you weren't gone." Layla's eyes softened. She blinked hard, a single tear cutting through the dust on her cheek. She always believed in impossible things. Phoenix nodded. "So did we." Outside, tracer rounds faded behind them. The helicopters banked toward the sea, racing for international waters. Rodriguez's voice came through comms. "Phoenix, JSOC wants immediate status." Phoenix answered without looking away from Layla. "Package secured, plus 2 CIA friendlies. We're inbound, and Rodriguez, tell command the impossible just got done." Static, then Rodriguez's voice, low with awe. "Copy that. Welcome home, son." Phoenix finally exhaled. The weight of 3 weeks' grief, guilt, disbelief began to lift, replaced by something quieter, gratitude. He turned to Layla. She was half asleep now, leaning against the bulkhead, IV dripping slowly beside her. He whispered, barely audible over the rotors, "Told you we'd come." Her eyes fluttered open, and she managed the faintest whisper back. "I never doubted it." Outside, the desert sun began to rise, bleeding orange and crimson across the horizon. And somewhere below, the compound still burned, a silent witness to the truth they'd lived and nearly died for. SEALs don't leave anyone behind. Not even the dead. The flight to the Gulf felt endless. The rhythmic thrum of the rotors was hypnotic, like a heartbeat echoing through steel. For the first time in 21 days, Layla Allen was surrounded by her own, the sound of English voices, familiar slang, the weight of brotherhood pressing close. Yet even now, even safe in the belly of the bird, her mind refused to rest. Phoenix watched her from across the cabin. Her head lolled against the fuselage, IV line snaking into her bruised arm. Her eyes flickered open every few minutes, scanning, assessing, the instinct of someone who'd lived too long in captivity to trust silence. Doc sat beside her, leg wrapped in a blood-soaked bandage. He should have been horizontal. Instead, he was checking her vitals again. "Pulse weak but stable, BP rising," he muttered. "She's a fighter." Phoenix nodded. "She always was." Joker leaned forward, voice softer than usual. "Boss, you realize this is going to melt half of Washington when we land. They buried her." Phoenix gave a faint smile. "Yeah, guess we'll have to dig her reputation back up too." The attempt at humor barely cut through the heaviness. The crew was running on adrenaline and disbelief. Every one of them had watched Layla's memorial, seen the folded flag, the tears. And now she was here alive, her chest rising and falling under Doc's steady hand. The horizon stretched endlessly ahead, the faint shimmer of dawn beginning to touch the world with color. Phoenix looked out through the small window, his reflection ghosting back at him. He thought about what she'd said in that cell. "I knew my brothers were coming for me." He wanted to believe that faith had kept her alive. But deep down, he knew there had been something darker, something that had burned hotter than hope. Vengeance. Layla's fingers twitched, breaking his thought. She turned her head toward him, voice rough but clear. "Phoenix, I'm here." Her lips cracked into a faint smile. "You ever seen hell?" He hesitated, once or twice. She shook her head weakly. "No, you've seen fire, not hell." Her breathing hitched. "Hell isn't pain, it's silence. It's when you scream and no one answers." Phoenix didn't respond. There was nothing to say. She closed her eyes again. "I counted days by the sound of the guards' boots. I remembered every voice, every accent, every face, because I knew one day I'd need to." Doc leaned closer, whispering, "You need to rest." Layla opened one eye, weary but focused. "Rest is for when it's over." Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comms from the USS Baton, calm but urgent. "Phoenix, JSOC has your feed. Prepare for medical transfer and debrief immediately on landing. The Iranians are already lighting up comms channels. This mission never happened, you understand." Phoenix smiled faintly. "Does it ever?" As they neared the coastline, the sky began to shift, blue bleeding into gold, the faint outline of the carrier fleet glimmering like steel islands below. 2 hours of flight, 2 hours of silence, 2 hours of watching life creep back into someone they'd already mourned. Layla stirred again. "How far?" "10 mics, Phoenix said." She nodded weakly, gaze drifting to the floor. Her voice trembled as she added, "They were going to sell me." The words hit like a round to the chest. Phoenix leaned forward. "What?" "To Wagner Group," she whispered. "They were negotiating. My intel, my knowledge, everything I knew about our networks in Syria. They wanted to trade me." Rodriguez's voice came through the comms again, sharp. "Say again, Lieutenant." Layla raised her head slightly, eyes focusing on the sound. "They wanted to hand me over. I heard them. Iranian handlers, Russian intermediaries. They mentioned Wagner, and something bigger, a joint op. 48 to 72 hours. Iraq." Silence. Then Phoenix keyed his mic. "Rodriguez, you getting this?" "Copy loud and clear. Forwarding to JSOC. Stay on her, we'll need every detail." Phoenix turned back to her. "You're sure?" Layla gave a faint nod. "They talked about logistics, flight paths, convoys disguised as humanitarian aid. It's coming. Soon." Her head fell back again. The effort of speech had drained her. Doc adjusted her IV. "She needs fluids, not questions." Phoenix nodded but couldn't stop his mind from racing. Wagner Group, Iran, Iraq. A storm was forming, and the eye of it had been sitting in a concrete cell beneath Tehran. When the Blackhawks touched down on the USS Baton, sunlight had fully broken over the sea. The deck crew rushed forward, medics, handlers, command staff, faces pale as they saw who stepped off the bird. Phoenix helped Layla down, her weight feather-light against his arm. She winced as her boots touched metal, but she stayed upright. She wasn't going to be carried now, not in front of them. Rodriguez met them on the flight deck. His voice caught when he saw her. "Jesus Christ, Layla." She tried to salute. Her hand barely rose an inch. He stepped forward and caught it midair. "At ease, Lieutenant, you did enough." The medics moved in, lifting her onto a gurney. She reached for Phoenix's hand as they rolled her toward the medical bay. "Don't let them bury me again," she said softly. He squeezed her hand. "Not happening." As she disappeared below deck, Phoenix exhaled the breath he'd been holding since the beacon first pinged. Rodriguez stood beside him, eyes still fixed on the corridor she'd vanished into. 3 weeks, he murmured. 3 damn weeks. 3 weeks, Phoenix echoed, and she still found a way to fight. Rodriguez turned to him. "We'll need her intel. If Wagner's involved, this goes way above our pay grade." Phoenix nodded slowly. "Then we start listening." Hours passed. The team showered, stitched, refueled, and debriefed, all within the same metallic warren of the carrier. Sleep was a ghost none of them could catch. When Phoenix finally entered the ship's infirmary, Layla was awake again, pale, bandaged, hooked to machines but conscious. A nurse stepped aside as he approached. She smiled faintly when she saw him. "You look worse than me." He smirked. "You should see Doc's leg." Her eyes softened, then turned serious. "They were breaking me down, Phoenix, every day, not just physically. They wanted me to start believing I'd been abandoned, that I didn't matter, that no one was coming." He leaned on the bedrail, and her gaze hardened. "And I didn't believe them. You don't train for Hell Week and forget who you are. You don't earn the trident and start doubting your own blood." He nodded slowly. "You kept the beacon hidden." "In a place they wouldn't think to look." Her mouth twitched, half humor, half pain. "Don't ask." "I won't." The room fell silent, except for the soft beeping of monitors. Finally she said, "Phoenix, they weren't just interrogating me. They were negotiating around me. Iran, Wagner, and someone else. Chinese, maybe, advisors, technical specialists. They were planning something far bigger than a prisoner trade." He frowned. "How big?" "Big enough to shift borders. Maybe start something no one can control." Phoenix let the words settle. The hum of the ship seemed louder now, the deck vibrations deeper. Outside that room, the world kept turning, but inside, something fundamental was changing. The sense that this mission, this rescue, wasn't the end. It was the beginning. By the time JSOC patched through the secure link to Washington, Layla had already dictated 3 pages of notes. Her voice was weak but steady, describing names, patterns, voices, even the cadence of the interrogator's accents. Generals and analysts scribbled furiously on the other end of the line. Phoenix stood nearby, arms crossed, watching her push through exhaustion. She shouldn't have been awake, but he knew why she was. People like them didn't rest when the world still needed answers. When the call ended, she slumped back, whispering, "They'll move fast now." "They already are," he said. "Fleet Command's mobilizing. JSOC's sending tasking orders. You just changed the map." Layla smiled faintly, eyes closing. "Good." He hesitated. "What now?" "Now," her voice faded to a whisper, "now you get ready, because they'll come looking for payback." Phoenix watched her drift into sleep, machine steady, face peaceful for the first time in weeks. He turned toward the window, staring out at the sun sinking over the horizon. The light glinted off the waves, calm, endless. But he felt it in his gut. Calm never lasted long in their line of work. Somewhere out there, someone was already planning the next move. And somewhere deep below deck, a woman they'd buried 3 weeks ago had just changed the course of the war. Sometimes survival isn't about luck. It's about defiance, the refusal to stay dead when the world has already written your obituary. The ocean was calm that night. From the flight deck of the USS Baton, the sea looked endless black glass under a bruised sky. Phoenix stood there, helmet tucked beneath his arm, the salt wind stinging his cuts. Somewhere below deck, machines hummed, doors hissed, and a heartbeat he thought he'd lost forever kept finding its rhythm again. He hadn't slept. None of them had. The debriefs had blurred together, hours of questions, paperwork, briefings, more questions. But it wasn't the mission that kept him awake. It was the image of her in that chair, bruised, unbroken, staring at him as if daring death to take one more swing. He'd seen men die bravely and he'd seen them break quietly. What he saw in Layla wasn't either. It was something else, something harder to name. Not defiance, not pride, something quieter. Maybe it was belief. Maybe it was the kind of faith that only people who have been to the edge understand. "Sir." Phoenix turned. Rodriguez approached, his face drawn and pale under the deck lights. The commander had aged 10 years in 2 days. He handed Phoenix a tablet. "You should see this." Phoenix scanned the screen. Satellite images, convoy routes, shipment manifests labeled with humanitarian seals. Wagner. Rodriguez nodded. "Confirmed. They're moving equipment through northern Iraq under UN cover. Iran's supplying logistics. We think the target's our forward operating site in Kirkuk." "When?" "72 hours, maybe less." Phoenix exhaled, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. She was right. "She was," Rodriguez said quietly, "and she's asking for you." The medical bay was dim when he entered, lit by monitors and the steady green pulse of life on a screen. Layla lay in the center bed, IVs snaking into both arms, bruises fatting to purple-yellow halos. She looked fragile, like a porcelain figure barely glued back together, but her eyes told a different story. "You look like hell," she murmured. Phoenix managed a faint smile. "You should see the other guy." She smirked, then winced from the effort. "You mean Titan? I heard he sprained his ego carrying me." The humor was thin, but it was real. For a moment the room felt lighter. He pulled a chair beside her bed. "You were right about the Wagner op. Rodriguez confirmed movement near Kirkuk." Her eyes sharpened. "Then you don't have much time." "We'll handle it. You focus on healing." She shook her head slowly. "Phoenix, they broke me down methodically. They asked about our tactics, our comm structure, even personal details, names, families, routines. They didn't just want intel. They wanted patterns. That means they already had a foundation. Someone's feeding them data." He frowned. "You think there's a leak?" "I know there is." The way she said it left no space for doubt. She turned her gaze toward the ceiling. "They called me a ghost, said America buries its ghosts fast. That's how they thought they'd beat me, make me one of them. Forgotten." Phoenix watched her fingers twitch, an unconscious gesture, restless. He recognized it. The same movement he'd seen in soldiers too long in captivity, the muscle memory of restraint, the body remembering the chain even when it's gone. "They were wrong," he said quietly. Her lips parted, something between a sigh and a laugh. "You came anyway." "Always would." She was silent for a long time. The hum of the monitors filled the room. Somewhere down the corridor, an announcement echoed through the ship, routine, distant, irrelevant. Finally, she said, "I saw things in there, Phoenix, names, maps, faces, but what I can't shake is what they didn't say. They kept referring to something called Operation Gather. No context, no dates, just reverence, like it wasn't just a plan, it was prophecy." He leaned forward. "You think it's tied to the Wagner op?" "I think it's the umbrella. Wagner's the muscle, Iran's the cover, but there's someone else pulling strings." Rodriguez entered behind them, quiet as the door hissed shut. "We're working on decrypting that name. Intelligence thinks it's Farsi for divine retribution. Fits the tone, doesn't it?" Layla looked at him, voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Then you don't have long. If they move before we're ready, Kirkuk won't be a base. It'll be a message." Rodriguez studied her, then Phoenix. "She shouldn't even be awake. But she's right. JSOC wants real-time planning input. She's authorized to join by secure link until she's cleared for travel." Layla smiled faintly. "Good, I hate being left out." Later that night, the conference room glowed with low blue light from the screens. The team sat around the table, Joker, Titan, Spectre, Doc, still in partial dress uniforms, still looking like they hadn't processed the fact that one of their dead was sitting 3 decks below giving strategic input. Rodriguez's voice was firm. Here, what we've confirmed. Wagner forces are embedding within Iranian convoys crossing the border disguised as medical shipments. Their likely objective is our intelligence hub in Kirkuk. They'll hit communications, extract data, and vanish before we can respond. Titan frowned. That's not an attack, that's infiltration. Exactly, Rodriguez said. And thanks to Layla's intel, we know they're bringing cyber specialists, North Korean contractors most likely. They're not coming for bodies, they're coming for secrets. Phoenix leaned forward. We intercept them en route, ambush the convoy in the border desert. Fast, clean, no escalation. Rodriguez nodded. That's the plan. You have 12 hours to rest and rearm. JSOC's approved your team as lead assault. Joker glanced around the room. 12 hours, huh? We just pulled the ghost of our teammate out of an Iranian dungeon and now we're going back out. Anyone else getting deja vu? Phoenix smirked. Welcome to Tuesday. The tension broke slightly. Even Rodriguez allowed himself a ghost of a smile. But when the others filed out, Phoenix lingered. He stared at the glowing map of northern Iraq, the thin red line marking enemy movement. 12 hours. He thought of Layla's face in that cell, her voice echoing in the dark. They wanted me to believe I'd been abandoned. And maybe that was what haunted him most. Not that she'd suffered, not that she'd nearly died, but that, for even 1 second, she might have believed it. Layla lay awake, the ceiling light dimmed to soft amber. The painkillers had dulled her body but not her mind. She listened to the hum of the ship's engines, the faint vibration under her hands. She remembered the cell, the smell, the laughter of the guards, the way the world had narrowed to 4 walls and a single promise: they'll come for me. When they finally did, she hadn't felt relief. She'd felt rage, rage that she'd been right, rage that she'd needed to be. Now, as exhaustion tugged at her, she found herself asking a question she'd avoided. Why had they come? Duty, loyalty, or guilt? Did it matter? She closed her eyes and saw flashes, Phoenix's face in the smoke, Doc dragging her toward light, Joker laughing through pain. They crossed a border, started a war, risked everything just to prove one thing: that family didn't end at the grave. Her hand drifted to the chain around her neck, the one they'd found among her confiscated items. Her beacon hung from it now, scorched, half-melted. She traced its edges with her thumb. Sometimes it wasn't courage that kept you alive. It was the fear of letting down the ones who believed in you. By morning, the ship was alive with motion again. Phoenix stood in the armory, loading magazines, running final checks. The mission clock was ticking down. The team worked in silence, the kind of silence that comes before storms. Doc limped past, muttering, "Tell me again why I'm not in sickbay." "Because you'd sneak out anyway," Phoenix said. "Damn right," Doc grunted. Joker tossed his rifle strap over his shoulder. "I heard she's joining the op remotely. That true?" Phoenix nodded. "Command setting up a feed to her med bay. She'll run comms for us, eyes on the grid." Joker gave a low whistle. "From prisoner to ops lead in 24 hours. You gotta admit, she's built different." Phoenix smiled faintly. She always was. Rodriguez entered the armory, voice firm. "Gear up, gentlemen, wheels up in 90. Phoenix turned toward the exit. For a brief moment, he hesitated, then veered toward the medical bay one last time. Layla was awake, propped up on pillows, surrounded by monitors. Her eyes met his the second he walked in. "They're letting me run comms," she said. "Told them I'd whisper if I had to." "I heard," Phoenix said, pulling a chair beside her. "You sure you're ready?" She nodded. "I was ready 3 weeks ago." He studied her. "You'll be on the channel. Every move we make, every round we fire, you'll be there." "That's where I belong." For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Phoenix said quietly, "We thought we'd lost you. We buried you." She met his eyes. "Then consider this a resurrection." He smiled, stood, and reached for his helmet. "We'll finish what you started." "I know you will," she said softly. "Just bring everyone back this time." He paused at the door, turning back just once. "That's the only kind of mission we do." As the door slid shut, Layla leaned back, the hum of equipment filling her ears. For the first time since the cell, she let her eyes close without fear. Because she knew something now, something stronger than vengeance, sharper than survival. It wasn't about being rescued. It was about being remembered. And somewhere deep in the ship's steel bones, the engines roared to life again, carrying them all toward the storm she'd seen coming long before anyone else. Sometimes the hardest battles aren't the ones you fight in captivity. They're the ones that wait for you after freedom. Why does the desert always smell like old blood before dawn? Joker muttered the line quietly from the cargo bay of the C-17 as he tightened the strap of his harness. The others didn't answer. They didn't need to. Every SEAL on that plane knew the scent he meant, the one that mixed heat, dust, gun oil, and the ghost of something ancient. Phoenix checked his watch. 0309. 90 minutes to target. The plan was tight, too tight. But that's how they operated, on the edge of impossible, where no plan survived first contact and every heartbeat was a negotiation with fate. The aircraft shuddered in turbulence. Titan swore under his breath, securing his pack of demolitions against the hull. Across from him, Doc flexed his bandaged leg, pain etched into the lines of his jaw but unspoken. Reaper sat silent, eyes closed, his sniper rifle resting across his knees like a relic. Only Layla's voice broke the monotony, calm and steady over the comms from her station aboard the USS Baton. "Confirming satellite recon," she said, her tone professional, detached, the voice of a soldier burying her ghosts beneath protocol. "Convoy left Iranian territory 30 minutes ago. 12 vehicles, 6 transport trucks, 4 technicals, and 2 lead escorts. Likely decoys." Phoenix leaned closer to the comm unit strapped to his vest. "You sound like you never left the field." A small pause, then her voice softer. "Maybe I never did." The team exchanged quick looks. No one said it out loud, but hearing her voice again, alive, precise, unflinching, sent a current through all of them. It was like having their compass back. "Target will cross the Iraq border near checkpoint Delta 7, Layla continued. "You'll intercept here." A digital ping marked a point glowing red on their tablets. "Terrain's open desert with low ridges to the west. Use elevation for ambush positioning. Once contact is made, extract the data packages, neutralize resistance, and exfiltrate before QRF arrives." "Copy," Phoenix said. "We go loud only if they do." "Phoenix," she added quietly, "they will." The ramp dropped with a hydraulic hiss. Wind howled into the bay, carrying the scent of sand and fuel. Phoenix gave the hand signal. One by one, they stepped into the void. Black shapes against the moon. 6 bodies falling through the night, gravity, silence, and faith. Phoenix counted the seconds, then pulled. The canopy snapped open. Below, the desert stretched endless and empty, a ghost sea under starlight. They landed in near-perfect formation, chutes buried, weapons assembled, all within minutes. The world here had no sound, only the crunch of boots and the low whisper of radio static. "Positions," Phoenix ordered. Reaper took the high ridge. Spectre began setting the shaped charges along the edge of the convoy route. Titan dug in near the choke point with the LMG. Joker and Doc stayed with Phoenix near the intercept position. Layla's voice guided them through the darkness. "Convoy now entering your sector. Confirm visual." Reaper adjusted his scope. 12 vehicles confirmed. No thermal anomalies. Lead truck looks heavier, possible command unit. "Hold until I mark." Phoenix knelt behind a dune, heartbeat slow, the cool metal of his rifle steady against his gloves. The desert was eerily beautiful at night, silent, indifferent. You could almost forget the politics, the flags, the orders. Out here, it was just life and death, stripped of ceremony. He thought of Layla again, her voice over comms, clipped and steady, as if she hadn't spent 3 weeks in a concrete cage. He wondered what strength that required to sit in a hospital bed and command an operation like nothing had happened. Maybe that was her defiance, to keep doing the job they tried to take from her. Convoy entering the kill zone, Layla's voice came, calm as stone. Stand by. The rumble of engines grew louder. Dust trails shimmered behind headlights. Phoenix could make out shapes now, trucks loaded with crates, each marked with faded humanitarian logos. Wolves in disguise. 3-2 mark. Spectre detonated the first charge. The desert lit up white-hot. The lead vehicle erupted in flame, rolling onto its side as shrapnel tore through the air. Titan opened up, his machine gun roaring, tracer rounds slicing across the convoy. Chaos. Drivers swerved, brakes screamed. Men spilled from the trucks, firing blind into the smoke. Phoenix and Joker sprinted forward, using the confusion to close distance. Reaper left flank, Phoenix shouted. On it, one by one, hostile silhouettes dropped before they could orient. Phoenix reached the first transport, yanked open the rear door. Inside, crates stacked floor to ceiling, stamped with Russian text. He cracked one open with his knife. Inside, servers, hard drives, encrypted routers, not weapons, data. Confirm intel payloads, he said. Layla's voice returned, faster now, alive with focus. Copy. Prioritize retrieval over destruction. Those systems hold operational keys for Gator. Understood. Joker began hauling crates while Spectre covered them. The air reeked of diesel and fire. Every second stretched thin. Then Layla's tone changed. Phoenix movement from the east, fast, multiple vehicles, reinforcements. Time. 3 minutes, maybe less. Phoenix turned. Spectre, prep demo on the last truck. Joker, load what you can and move. Doc, he said over comms, status. Minor hit on Titan, shoulder graze. We're good. A bullet whined past his ear, embedding into the metal behind him. Phoenix ducked, firing a controlled burst. 2 hostiles fell. He swung to cover Joker, shouting, move it. Smoke thickened. Engines roared closer. Layla's voice cut through, sharp. Phoenix, listen carefully. I've got eyes on the reinforcements. It's not just Iranians, it's Wagner vehicles too, marked with hybrid comm systems. They're jamming satellite feed. If they cut me off, you're blind. Phoenix ducked behind a burning truck. Then give me options. Working on it. A pause. There's a dry ravine west of your position. You can't see it from there, it's covered by a dune. It'll get you 2 kilometers out of their radar cone. He glanced west, flat sand, no visible ravine. You sure? Her voice softened, confident. I'm sure. I memorized that terrain when I was running recon before, she trailed off. The sentence didn't need finishing, before they buried her. Copy, Phoenix said. We're moving west in 30. Make it 20. He smiled grimly. Roger that. They began falling back, covering each other through bursts of gunfire. Titan laid suppressive fire as the others withdrew, each movement practiced, precise. Flames leapt behind them, silhouetting the battlefield like a nightmare painting. Layla's voice guided them the whole way, each coordinate, each angle. Her tone never cracked, even as static bled through the line. When they reached the edge of the ridge, Phoenix saw it, a narrow gash in the desert, invisible from above until you were standing over it. A dry riverbed, exactly where she said. They slid down one by one, breathless, coated in soot and sweat. Reaper brought up the rear, rifle slung. Layla, we're in the ravine, Phoenix said, heading west. Static, then her voice faint but steady. Copy, drone feeds compromised, I'm losing you. Say again. Nothing. He tapped the radio. Command, confirm link with baton. Only white noise. The team exchanged glances. Titan muttered they jammed her. Phoenix clenched his jaw. Then we finished blind. The next hour was a blur of movement and silence. They followed the ravine west, avoiding open terrain, every sense on edge. The sky above glowed faintly with dawn. When the signal finally returned, Layla's voice broke through, ragged, panicked. "Phoenix, do you copy?" He exhaled hard, loud and clear. "I lost you for 7 minutes. They spiked a directed jammer toward the fleet. We barely got back online." "You sound out of breath," he said quietly. "I rerouted control manually. Climbing stairs on morphine's not fun." Despite the chaos, Phoenix smiled. "You really are impossible." "Just stubborn," she said. "Status." "Mission complete. Data secure. Minimal casualties." A pause, then softer. "Good, you got them back." He looked at his team, sweat, dirt, exhaustion, and nodded to himself. "Yeah, all of them." The desert wind howled softly through the ravine. The worst was over, for now. But something in her tone lingered when she spoke again, quiet, deliberate, almost haunted. "Phoenix, the data you pulled, it's not just tactical, it's personal, some of it's about us." He frowned. "Us?" "I'll explain when you're back aboard, just be ready." The line went silent again. Phoenix stared at the horizon, where the sun had finally broken through the clouds. Whatever they had just uncovered, it wasn't over, not by a long shot. And somewhere in a dim room miles away, Layla Allen sat in her hospital bed, headset pressed to her ear, her reflection staring back at her in the screen. For the first time since her rescue, she looked afraid. Because she recognized a name in those files, one she never thought she'd see again. And it belonged to someone she once trusted. Sometimes the dead don't stay buried. Sometimes they come back wearing a different uniform. The hum of the ship felt different when Phoenix's team returned to the USS Baton. It was lower, heavier, like the ocean itself was holding its breath. The mission had been a success by every metric that mattered. No losses, primary intel secured, enemy operation dismantled. And yet, none of them were celebrating. Phoenix felt it the moment his boots hit the flight deck. The silence, the way the crew looked at them, not admiration this time but uncertainty. Rodriguez was waiting, no handshake, no debrief, just a clipped order. "Secure your gear, medical first, briefing in 2 hours, classified room 7. Phoenix nodded, but his instincts were already whispering. Something was wrong. As he walked toward the corridor, his comm buzzed. A secure line. Only one voice came through. "Phoenix." "Layla." Her tone wasn't her usual steel. It was quieter, hesitant. "I need you to come down to medical, now, alone." He didn't ask questions, he just turned. The lights in the med bay were dim, the air thick with antiseptic and salt. Layla sat upright on her bed, monitors still hooked to her arms, IV line coiled neatly at her side. She pulled the heart sensors off herself. Her hands shook slightly, but her eyes, those fierce, unyielding eyes, were steady. On the tray beside her lay a tablet. Classified markings blinked across the screen. "I decrypted part of the data package you brought back," she said quietly. Phoenix moved closer, and she turned the tablet toward him, names scrolled across it, units, call signs, logistics entries, some redacted, others not. He didn't recognize most, until one made his breath catch. "Rodriguez." "Tell me that's not what it looks like," he said. Her jaw tightened. "It's his signature, encrypted routing from months ago, secure files traded through a dead drop server used by Wagner intermediaries, payments routed through dummy accounts." Phoenix shook his head. "That's impossible. Rodriguez, he's been with us for years. He's—" "Exactly," she cut in. "That's why it worked." Silence swallowed the room. The ship's engines rumbled faintly beneath their feet, a heartbeat beneath disbelief. Phoenix stared at the screen. You sure this isn't planted, disinfo? I checked, twice. Then again, same hash, same encryption pattern he uses on every classified log entry. He looked at her, disbelief curdling into something else, hurt. Rodriguez had given him his first command, trusted him with men's lives, and now his name sat glowing in digital ink under enemy transactions. Layla watched him carefully. I didn't want to believe it either. He rubbed his face, exhaling hard. If this is true, everything we've done, every op, he's been feeding intel upstream. She nodded slowly. It's why they knew my roots, my mission profile, why my bird went down. They didn't find me by accident, Phoenix. They were waiting. The weight of her words pressed against the room like gravity. Phoenix leaned against the table, hands gripping its edge. You think he sold you out? Her voice dropped to a whisper. I don't think I know. 2 hours later, the briefing room door sealed with a heavy thud. The team filed in, Joker, Titan, Doc, Spectre, faces drawn and quiet. Rodriguez was already inside, standing at the head of the table, backlit by a large projection of operational data. Phoenix entered last. His gaze met Rodriguez's. Nothing in the commander's face betrayed guilt, just tired resolve. Rodriguez started the debrief as if nothing had changed. Operation was successful. Intel recovery exceeded expectations. Enemy network disrupted. You did your jobs. He paused, eyes moving across them all. You've earned your rest. Phoenix didn't sit. Permission to speak freely, sir. Rodriguez's gaze narrowed. Granted. Phoenix tossed a data drive onto the table. We found something in that intel, something you might want to explain. A flicker, barely a twitch of muscle across Rodriguez's jaw. What exactly am I looking at, Master Chief? Layla's voice came through the intercom before Phoenix could answer. You're looking at your own betrayal. The room froze. Every man turned toward the sound. Rodriguez's eyes shifted upward, recognizing the voice immediately. Lieutenant Allen, he said evenly, you're supposed to be on bed rest. I was, she replied. Then I found your payment logs. For a moment, no one spoke. The hum of the projectors seemed to grow louder. Rodriguez straightened. You're making a dangerous accusation, Lieutenant. No, Phoenix said coldly. She's making a confirmed one. He pressed a key on the table. The hollow display changed. Encrypted banking routes appeared, timestamps, coded transfers, communications metadata, all traced back to an internal command node. Rodriguez's face didn't change, but his eyes flicked once toward the exit, too fast, too telling. Titan moved first, stepping subtly between him and the door. Joker exhaled slowly. Jesus, sir, tell us this isn't real. Rodriguez didn't answer. Phoenix's voice was low, controlled. You sold her out. You fed them her location. You knew that chopper was compromised. Rodriguez finally spoke, voice cold. You think you understand what this is. You think you see a traitor. He took a step forward, calm now, almost pitying. This isn't betrayal, son. It's strategy, the kind you'll never see from behind a rifle scope. Phoenix's eyes darkened. You gave them one of our own. Rodriguez's lips curved slightly. I gave them what they needed to keep this war contained. One life for thousands. She was supposed to die, clean, contained. Then she ruined it by surviving. The words hit like a blow. Joker muttered under his breath, You son of a... Titan grabbed his shoulder, stopping him. Phoenix's fists clenched. You justified selling her life for your career. Rodriguez shook his head slowly. No, for your country. You think they don't make those calls in D.C. You think all of you haven't been used the same way. He looked around the room. Your tools, all of you, useful, disposable. And I was trying to protect the only thing that matters, the mission. Silence followed. Not the kind that fills space, but the kind that swallows it. Layla's voice came through the comm again, steady now, every word like a blade. Funny thing about tools, Commander. Even broken ones can cut the hand that wields them. Rodriguez turned toward the camera, face unreadable. You should have stayed buried, Lieutenant. Phoenix took a step forward. She didn't, and now you will. Rodriguez reached for his sidearm. Titan was faster. The gun hit the floor before it cleared the holster. Security flooded the room seconds later, drawn by the silent alarm Phoenix had triggered. Rodriguez didn't resist. He simply smiled as they cuffed him. As he was let out, he said quietly, "You think this ends with me. You have no idea how deep this runs." The door closed behind him. The room exhaled. Phoenix stood still, eyes fixed on the empty space where Rodriguez had stood. Joker broke the silence first. "So that's it, huh? We kill ghosts, then find out one's been sitting at our table." Doc looked at Phoenix. "What now?" Phoenix glanced toward the intercom. "Now we finish what he started our way." Later, in the stillness of the med bay, Layla sat alone, staring out at the ocean through the small porthole. She listened to every second of that confrontation, every word. She should have felt vindicated, but all she felt was hollow. Rodriguez hadn't just sold her out. He'd stolen something deeper, faith, the belief that the uniform still meant something pure. Phoenix entered quietly. "He's on his way to Bahrain, JSOC custody. They'll bury it under 100 layers of red tape." She didn't look at him. "So he'll disappear quietly, just like I did." Phoenix hesitated. "You want justice, you're not going to get it from them." Her gaze lifted slowly to meet his. "Then I'll make my own." He studied her, exhausted, stitched, barely healed, but there was something burning behind her eyes again. Not revenge, resolve. "You can't fight ghosts with rage, Layla," he said softly. "They feed on it." She gave a small, humorless smile. "Then I'll starve them." He stood beside her for a while, both silent, listening to the soft thrum of engines beneath them. After a long moment, she whispered, "When they buried me, Phoenix, I think part of me stayed there. The part that believed in orders, in command. What's left now is just survival." He nodded slowly. "Then survive on your terms." She turned her gaze back to the horizon. The first hints of dawn glowed on the water, painting the waves in gold and blood. Somewhere beyond that line, wars would keep burning, names would keep disappearing, and loyalties would keep shifting like sand. But for now, just for now, she was alive. And that meant the fight wasn't over. Sometimes, survival isn't victory. It's the quiet promise that one day, truth will speak louder than orders. The sea was calm again, but calm had become a lie Layla no longer trusted. Every night she would wake before dawn, drenched in sweat, convinced she could still hear the cell door slamming shut. In those moments she didn't see the ocean, she saw concrete. And in every sound, the hiss of hydraulics, the buzz of fluorescent lights, she heard echoes of Tehran. 3 weeks aboard the USS Baton, her wounds healed faster than her sleep. The doctors called her recovery miraculous. Phoenix called it inevitable. But she knew the truth. It wasn't strength keeping her alive. It was unfinished business. The investigation into Rodriguez's betrayal had stalled almost instantly. Official silence wrapped around it like fog. National security, they said. Ongoing inquiry. But Layla knew a cover-up when she saw one. The day she was cleared for limited duty, she walked straight past the infirmary's discharge desk and down the steel corridors toward tactical command. The corridors vibrated faintly with the hum of machinery, the ship's heartbeat. It reminded her of herself, patched, running, not sure why she still functioned. Inside the command suite, Phoenix stood over a table glowing with projected maps: Syria, Iraq, Iran. Red markers pulsed along a familiar path, Gatter Network. He didn't look surprised to see her. "I knew you wouldn't stay in bed," he said quietly. "I wasn't built for rest," she replied. He studied her, thinner, paler, but with the same fire in her eyes that had scared instructors during Bud S. "They're shutting the case on Rodriguez," he said. "Transferred him off record. JSOC's moving on." Her jaw tightened. "Of course they are." Phoenix crossed his arms. "What are you planning?" "Finding what he was covering up," she said. "He wasn't just selling locations. He was burying something. I saw a string in those files, partial coordinates tied to black funding. Off-book. Deep off-book, something called Project Sable." Phoenix frowned. "Never heard of it." "You weren't supposed to." She placed a small drive on the table. "I mirrored the decrypted files before they locked me out." He gave a low whistle. "You realize that's technically treason." She met his gaze evenly. "Then I guess I've got practice being accused of things I didn't do." Phoenix looked at the drive, then at her. "You're going after them, aren't you?" Her voice was steady. "Not alone." He exhaled slowly, glancing toward the digital map. "You'll need transport, access, cover." "You in?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "You even have to ask." 2 nights later, they were wheels down in Djibouti, using a humanitarian relief manifest as cover. The Baton had quietly detached its support aircraft under the guise of fleet rotation. Officially, they were on leave. Unofficially, they were ghosts again. Layla sat in the back of the transport van, laptop balanced on her knees. The air was thick with dust, diesel, and tension. Joker drove. Doc monitored the rear camera feed. Titan cleaned his weapon methodically, metal clicking against metal, his way of dealing with nerves. "Coordinates cross-check," Layla said. "Northern Syria, abandoned logistics site near Deir ez-Zor. Used to be ours before the pullout." Phoenix leaned forward from the passenger seat. "And now?" "Now it's empty on paper, which means someone wants it that way." The van jolted over uneven ground. In the distance, orange lights shimmered, oil fields burning in the desert night. Doc glanced back at her. "You sure you're up for this? I mean, after everything?" Layla smiled faintly, eyes fixed on the screen. "Doc, after what I've been through, the only thing I'm not up for is sitting still." They reached the perimeter by dawn. The old U.S. forward operating base lay half buried in sand, its walls crumbling under years of neglect. But the tracks in the dust told a different story, fresh, recent. "Somebody been using this place," Phoenix murmured. Joker scanned the area through binoculars. "Vehicles, not military, civilian trucks, modified suspensions, that's Wagner style." Layla climbed out, her boots crunching against the sand. She felt the weight of the air still, heavy, the kind of quiet that comes before a storm. Inside the base, the ghosts of the past lingered, faded murals, old mission charts still tacked to walls, the smell of dust and oil. Titan lifted a tarp, revealing stacked crates stamped with Cyrillic markings. Inside, ammunition, comm equipment, and hard drives. "Looks like a nerve center," he said. Layla knelt beside the crates, prying one open. Her breath caught. A familiar insignia stared back at her, a trident etched beside a black circle. Naval Special Warfare. "What the hell is this?" Joker muttered. Phoenix crouched beside her. "That's ours." She shook her head. "No, not anymore." She connected one of the drives to her laptop. The screen filled with encrypted directories, then lines of decoded text. Her eyes moved fast, scanning. "Project Sable," she whispered. "Rodriguez didn't sell intelligence. He redirected it. He was feeding Wagner real-time SEAL deployment data for Joint Shadow Ops. They weren't targeting us. They were using us." Phoenix's stomach dropped. "You mean?" Every mission, every extraction, every black op in the last year mirrored. They built patterns out of our playbook, used our methods to train their teams. Joker's voice was low, disbelieving. "They cloned us." Layla's jaw clenched. "No, they corrupted us." A faint sound broke the silence, tires crunching on gravel. Titan looked up. "We've got company." Phoenix peered through a gap in the broken wall. A small convoy approached, dust trailing behind. "Too organized to be scavengers," he said. Layla unplugged the drive, slipping it into her vest. "We can't fight them head-on. We move east, regroup at the ridge." "Copy," Phoenix said. "Everyone out." They slipped through the back of the compound, moving fast and low. But as they reached the ridge, a voice crackled over the radio, unfamiliar, calm, speaking flawless English. "Lieutenant Allen, you don't need to run." Layla froze, the others turned. The voice continued, "You've already proven your worth once. Let's not make this difficult again." She felt her pulse spike. That voice, she knew it. It belonged to the man from the interrogations, the one who had spoken to her in perfect English through a mask, asking questions he already knew the answers to. Her mouth went dry. "Wagner." Phoenix raised his rifle. "You know him." Her voice shook just slightly. "He's the one they called Volkov, Wagner commander, Rodriguez's contact." Over the ridge, vehicles came into view, matte black, dust-coated, engines humming low. Men emerged in tactical gear without insignias. The voice came again, now closer. "You should have stayed buried, Layla. The dead aren't meant to come back twice." Phoenix positioned himself in front of her. "You want her, you go through me." There was a pause, then laughter, quiet, restrained, chilling. "How noble," Volkov said. "But you misunderstand. She's not the enemy, she's the key." The air cracked with the first shot. Phoenix dove, dragging Layla behind a half-collapsed wall as gunfire erupted across the desert. Titan's LMG answered instantly, spitting rounds toward the advancing line. Dust exploded around them. Joker shouted over the noise, "They've got elevation." Reaper's voice cut in from a nearby ridge. "Not for long." His rifle barked, precise and deadly. Two of the attackers dropped before they even found cover. Layla pressed against the wall, clutching the drive to her chest. Her breath came fast. The noise, the flashes, it was Tehran again. The cell, the screams, the endless waiting. Phoenix turned to her. "Stay with me, Layla." She blinked hard, forcing the memory back into its cage. "I'm here." "Good," he said, "because we're not dying for ghosts today." They pushed forward through the storm of bullets, a coordinated dance of chaos and precision. Titan's gun went dry. Joker reloaded mid-run. Doc dragged a bleeding arm but kept firing. And through it all, Layla moved with them, no longer a prisoner, no longer a shadow. She fought like someone who'd already died once and refused to do it again. When the last shot faded, the desert fell silent. Smoke hung in the air, curling like breath. Phoenix stepped over a fallen Wagner soldier, scanning for movement. Clear. Titan panted, checking his weapon. That was no patrol, they were waiting. Layla knelt beside one of the bodies, pulling off his glove. On the wrist, a tattoo, the same trident and circle insignia. Her stomach turned. "They're not just copying us, they're us." Phoenix frowned, meaning. She looked up, voice hollow. "They're using our DNA. Rodriguez must have given them seal biometric data, fingerprints, DNA, voice IDs. Wagner's building ghost units, perfect duplicates for deniable operations." Joker's face paled. "Jesus, they could commit war crimes in our name." Layla nodded, and no one would ever know the difference. Phoenix stared at the horizon. The sun was rising now, bleeding red over the dunes. Layla stood beside him, silent for a moment. Then she said quietly, "This isn't about revenge anymore. This is about identity. They stole who we are." Phoenix looked at her, eyes hard. "Then we take it back." The wind picked up, carrying sand like whispers across their boots. Layla glanced at the burning vehicles below and whispered something under her breath, not to anyone, not even to him. "For every name they erased," she said softly, "we write it back in fire. Sometimes the only way to reclaim who you are is to burn the imitation to the ground." It was raining in the desert. Fine, trembling rain, barely enough to wet the ground, but enough to blur the horizon. The kind of rain that felt out of place, like a secret the sky couldn't hold anymore. Layla stood at the edge of the burned-out Wagner convoy, her reflection flickering in a puddle of oil-streaked water. Around her, the others gathered what they could: weapons, intel, the fragments of proof that would never make it into any official report. Phoenix crouched near a dead comms operator, pulling a cracked tablet from the man's chest rig. "Encrypted," he said, "but this looks like a network map. Might show us where the duplicates are being trained." Layla nodded, her voice calm but distant. "Pull everything, we end it tonight." Doc glanced at her. "You sure you're ready for that?" She looked past him, toward the horizon where lightning flickered faintly across the clouds. Ready stopped mattering a long time ago. By dusk they were airborne again. A borrowed drone transport, silent and dark, cutting through the storm. Phoenix sat across from her, helmet in his lap, eyes locked on the mission schematic flickering on the bulkhead. Their target was deep in the Syrian desert, a decommissioned underground bunker from the Cold War era. Satellite images showed recent heat signatures, hidden power lines, unmarked vehicles. Joker whistled softly. "That's a fortress, not a lab." Layla checked her weapon, sliding a mag into place with deliberate precision. "It's both. They're manufacturing ghost teams there, probably half operational already." Titan grunted. "Then we send them back to the grave." Phoenix looked at her. "We're outnumbered, no reinforcements, no air cover." Her gaze didn't waver. "We don't need numbers, we just need truth loud enough to echo." The plane rattled through turbulence. The world outside flashed white and gray. Inside, silence settled like prayer. They touched down 2 kilometers from the site under the cover of a sandstorm. Wind whipped against their suits, stinging eyes and skin. Visibility near zero, perfect cover. Phoenix led the advance, motioning with 2 fingers toward the faint glow ahead. Infrared picked up heat signatures, dozens of them, moving with precision. Layla's heart pounded. They weren't just men down there. They were copies, fragments of identity stolen and remade, every movement rehearsed, every tactic familiar, too familiar. She whispered into the mic, "Remember what we trained for. Remember who we are." They hit the perimeter in coordinated silence. Spectre cut the power lines. Titan and Joker breached the western wall. Phoenix and Layla moved through the tunnel, shadow and breath, each footstep measured. Inside, the bunker hummed with quiet life. Rows of screens, biometric pods glowing faintly blue. Within them, bodies, breathing, human, cloned. Joker muttered, "Jesus Christ." Layla's eyes filled with a cold kind of sorrow. Each face was different, yet somehow they all looked like someone she'd lost. She found the control console, hands trembling slightly as she scrolled through digital files. "They've copied every SEAL biometric signature in the system," she said. "Even mine." Phoenix leaned closer. "We can't let this data survive." She nodded slowly. "No, but I want them to know why." She switched on the central PA. Her voice echoed through the complex, steady as steel. "This is Lieutenant Layla Allen, United States Navy. You built this from lies. You carved soldiers out of ghosts, but ghosts don't fight for you. They fight to be free." For a moment, only the hum of generators answered her. Then the alarms began. Red lights flashed across the halls. Volkov's voice crackled over the intercom, distorted and cold. "I told you, Lieutenant, you can't kill what's already dead." She turned toward the sound, weapon raised. "Then let's find out." Gunfire erupted from the upper levels. Phoenix's team took cover behind pillars as enemy units poured in, precise, relentless, coordinated. It was like fighting their own reflections. Titan roared, mowing down a line of attackers with his LMG. "They move like us." "They are us," Joker shouted back, reloading. Layla ducked behind a console, breathing hard. Every instinct screamed to run, but she'd spent too long running from ghosts. Not tonight. She reached for a detonator clipped to her vest. "Phoenix," she said through the smoke, "get them out." He turned instantly. "Not without you." "Don't argue." Her tone softened. "You'll never make peace with the past if you keep carrying mine." He shook his head. "We finish this together." A sudden movement. Volkov appeared through the haze, weapon drawn. His face was unmasked now, scarred, tired but human. "Even if you destroy this place," he said, voice low, "someone else will rebuild it. You can't erase what we've become." Layla stepped forward slowly, her weapon leveled. "You're right," she said quietly, "but I can make sure you never forget who stopped you." She pulled the trigger. One shot. The man fell soundless. Phoenix's voice broke through the ringing in her ears. "Layla, we have to move." She looked at him, eyes burning, and pressed the detonator into his hand. "Go," she whispered. He froze. "Layla." Her smile was small, almost peaceful. "Someone has to stay. Someone has to make sure they all burn." He hesitated for one heartbeat too long. Then he grabbed her wrist. "You don't need to prove anything anymore." Tears stung her eyes, anger, pain, relief. "I'm not proving, I'm remembering." She shoved him toward the exit, hit the override on the blast doors, sealing him out. Through the small, reinforced window, Phoenix pounded his fist once against the glass, shouting her name. She placed her palm against it, the faintest smile crossing her lips. "Tell them," she mouthed. "Tell them I wasn't buried, I rose." Then she turned back toward the core chamber. The explosion tore through the desert like thunder from the earth itself. Flames blossomed upward, devouring sand and steel. The storm carried the firelight for miles, painting the night red and gold. From the ridge, Phoenix watched it burn, silent, motionless, the detonator still in his hand. No words came, just the sound of the wind carrying her name somewhere into eternity. Behind him, Joker whispered, "She did it." Phoenix's voice was low, breaking. "Yeah, she did." They stood there until dawn broke over the wreckage. The storm had passed. The sky was clear again, painfully clear. 3 weeks later, a small envelope arrived at the Pentagon. No return address. Inside was a single dog tag, tarnished, bent but real. And a note written in steady handwriting. "You can bury a name, but not what it stands for. Some of us keep fighting long after the last order fades." Phoenix never spoke about what happened after. But every year on the same day, he'd visit the coast where the ocean met the cliffs, where the wind still smelled like the sea in memory. Sometimes he'd close his eyes and swear he could still hear her voice. Calm, steady, certain. The kind of voice that didn't shout to be heard. The kind that left silence heavier when it was gone. And in that silence her truth lingered. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts.